Welcome to our new podcast, Through Their Eyes. We're just a couple of veterans here, myself and Lee, who's over there, and we're going to be just covering subjects that we know about and maybe some we don't know about. This first subject we're going to talk about is something that's really close to your heart, which is PTSD. And so let me introduce you to Lee. Lee, tell us who you are and why you're here doing what you're doing.
First off, then, thanks for letting me be a part of this, Billy. I really do appreciate it. A little bit about myself. I served in the military from 2000 to 2001 as a regular soldier in the Royal Engineers, and then 2009 left the regular army and joined the reservist. It was about a 6 months gap in that. And yeah, I just, I suppose, not long completed my military career on paperwork. However, my career ended around 2016.
So you left in 2016. Was there a reason why you left?
Yeah, so if I go back to my regular service, one, I was top recruit in Purbright. Even though after the 4-week period when you could leave as an adult entry, it was my section commander said, you're doing really well. So I was actually a top recruit. I was in the top section of training. I was a top fabricator on my trade training as a Royal Engineer, being a fabricator welder. And my career was really good, to the point that my promotion to Lance Corporal was pretty quick. And really, it was when we started to deploy on operations. So my first operation being Iraq, second Afghanistan with the Royal Engineers, and things just didn't feel the same. Now, back then, I felt really ashamed or embarrassed, so I never really mentioned it, but I knew something weren't quite right. The trouble with stigma back then, it was still, chin up, carry on. I felt as if it would be a career failure, and I'd done so well in my career anyway, up to that point, I didn't want to go through that. So I opted to sign off and done my year to basically leave the regular service. But on leaving the regular service, it may have felt even worse. I was now not in the crowd I was in before. I didn't have my friends, muckers with me. There weren't that side of the support. You felt very lonely. And I felt like there was things I haven't put to rest. So I decided to look around for a way of still doing military service. And that's when it was in the transition at the time from TA to reserves. I was looking for a Royal Engineer Reserve unit. The Royal Engineers that I went to, it felt a bit alien to me because as a reservist, they do things in a bit slow time. So they can't go and do the combat engineer training course straight out. They do modular. So it just didn't feel the same. However, someone said to me that near me, where I am, there's a Army Air Corps regiment starting up to support regulars out on the ground. So I took a look and I thought, well, I remember the Apaches being above my head when I was on the ground, and I got shown this fantastic video, as you do when you go into any recruit centre. I thought, you know what, I can do that. I'll be ground crew. So that's when I then joined the reserve service and started to focus on a slightly different career within the army. Fast-tracked through a lot of it because I was already holding rank at this time, until I was basically commanding a FARP, forward arming and reloading point for the Apaches. Again, things didn't feel quite right. But the good thing about a reserve service, you were never forced to deploy. It was volunteer deployments. The trouble is with me, I kept putting my hand up, and it was somewhere I needed to keep going. So I kept deploying to Iraq. Not Iraq. I kept deploying to Afghanistan, even though the difference then was I was behind the wire. You did move around sometimes, but you were mainly behind the wire, letting the aircraft go and do their thing. And you couldn't deploy out on the ground as an engineer, and I did as doing that. And then, even though things weren't right, I was coping. And we all get to that stage, I think, with our mental health, we learn to cope. things might adjust slightly, but you get through it. Until there was 3 squadrons that was meant to deploy out for the final operations within Afghanistan. They extended 2 squadrons, so they didn't have to bring out a third, obviously cost cutting. So we was the second to last deployment before they were shutting down Bastion, Camp Bastion. So we were helping with some of the closing off, but not all of it. It weren't until I then got home, I realised there was nowhere I could not deploy. And the strange thing about it is that is when everything started to deteriorate fast. I knew I couldn't get back out to a war zone, basically, which is where I felt comfortable. And I hear this, well, after my diagnosis and through different understanding of post-traumatic stress, is actually that's quite a common occurrence, that people put themselves back in situations where that may have caused the issue in the first place. So it was after that deployment, and then I pottered around the squadron, and I was doing well, and I was basically for promotion, I was top of the list, but my time weren't quite right, so I couldn't actually get promoted. And within a year, it deteriorated that much that I didn't even sit on the board for promotion.
So do you think, after being an engineer, then going to the Army Air Corps, you were looking for that other cat badge right away? Or you were looking for another cat badge? Even when you left, you weren't ready for civilian life, and basically, civilian life was probably part of the problem. Yeah,
basically I was not ready. I was trained to be a soldier, and that was a shock to the system, leaving civilian life to become a soldier. There was no preparation on reversing that.
Yeah, that's something I've dealt with for a long time. So I've been working with veterans for 17 years now with PTSD. And the story you've just told is a recurrent story about looking to get back on deployment because you feel safer there. It kind of sounds a bit weird, to the outside world, that's where you feel most in tune with yourself. And then it start coming back. Even coming back off an operational tour for anybody is an adjustment period, isn't it?
It is, yes.
And I know the Army tried to solve that by sending guys to Cyprus to get pissed and fight each other, but it was never quite enough.
No.
Because one day you're in Cyprus having a bit of a tear up with your mates, and then next day you're in Tesco's with your missus, and it doesn't quite work that way, does it?
I think with the decompression, I was on one of the first decompressions when it was in Cyprus, and we were lucky enough to volunteer, never volunteer for anything normally, volunteer and actually go out to Cyprus, and we were there for 3 weeks. We had different cat badges coming through the system within that time. We probably had pretty much a week and a half off. The briefing was do anything you want, just don't go to Ayia Napa. And we didn't ourselves really get a decompression, not through the different structures everyone else was getting. But no, it's not enough, because I think they just put something in place because they didn't want people coming back and then fighting.
Yeah. So, but did you put you in a place where you could?
Where you could. However, it never really stopped it. Because
no, it's never going to stop it. You can't just come from operational tours to just nothing.
No.
I remember after the Falklands when 3 para came back, they just ran amok. And obviously 2 para as well up in Aldershot, 3 para were here in Tidworth, and they just ran amok because they had to have a release of some sort.
Exactly.
And at that time, we just didn't have anything like decompression. Your decompression at that time was going down the pub and having a tear up, with any other cat badge you could find. So in lots and lots of ways, Afghanistan and Iraq changed how we look at PTSD.
Yes.
Are we where we need to be right now? No, we're still a million miles away, but I don't know how they go about making it any better. Because as an RSM said to me one day, he says, Billy, we're not a welfare unit. And I kind of get it.
Yeah.
If a guy's going through PTSD, the way the Army deal with that is send them home,
Yeah. I think, from what my understanding of certain things they do now with within the trim. I can't remember. It's trauma something or other.
Trauma risk management, isn't it?
Yeah. However, one of the things they've picked up, and I personally believe it's from everyone I've ever spoke to within the States. I mean, I've worked with people from the United States, and how they deal with things is deal with it at the front line or talk about it. So I think what happened is or what we're trying to adjust to as a country is actually, if you talk about it when incidents or just after incidents happen, because I think mainly the problem is you bottled it up. So crack on, do what you need to do for that operation, that task, whatever it may be. But the debrief after that is when people can talk about what was your experience, what happened here, and getting it out of the system is, my eyes, a great start for not bottling it up. And I think what happens is I think there's a lot of people out there that probably have experienced post-traumatic stress. They've, in some form, but it's the build-up of traumas that can cause, I think, an even longer-lasting effect or more detrimental to things around you than if they can talk about it and catch it. And then things like family, friends, things might have all been in place still, instead of getting to the point where you can lose everything.
Yeah, so I get all that. And I can only look at my own perspective. Glaswegian, we don't really talk about our feelings anyway.
No.
So on tour, the last thing I'm going to do is talk about how I feel. It would always be, I'm all right. It would never be, but I don't think I'd ever open up. I don't think I ever have opened up fully about any experiences I've had. And so I get how the Americans do it. They're more in touch with that. They're more in touch with they're a therapy nation, aren't they?
Yes.
Or we're not. We're a closed nation. We're closed as individuals, I think, and that makes it more difficult.
I think, and you're right in saying that. And it's not going to be us, and it's not probably the next generation that's going to feel the benefit of that. But I think if that was taught and going through, then eventually it will become second nature.
Well, that's the hope, isn't it? The hope is so doing the work I do now here with Veterans in Action, which is working with veterans, and we get some of the worst cases of PTSD here.
Yeah.
And they all come with a myriad of other problems because they haven't spoken about their trauma.
Yes.
And what they do is, like, if you can look at PTSD is in the middle somewhere, like surrounded by a myriad of other problems that they carry, which basically makes their PTSD worse than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And because we don't talk about our problems, that just gets to a point where everything breaks down.
Yeah.
And that's what we generally see with PTSD here. So the methodology we use for that is that we take a long-term view at PTSD, and we work in projects over a long period of time and look at all the stuff that's not PTSD.
Yeah.
Because if we don't deal with them factors, all the stuff that's around the illness, if we keep on working with veterans, and this is the way it's been in the past with therapy-based organisations, which the therapy is great, but if we've got nothing to do in between therapy or after therapy, we just revert back to where we were. Yeah,
I mean, we all know that you go back to what's easy for the brain anyway. Yeah, so, it's a difficult thing to, I suppose, push yourself through something that you're uncomfortable with. And that is why you'll go back to past things that ain't so healthy, be it alcohol, be it whatever, Well,
that's always the easiest one to go to, yeah. We get bevied.
Well, it is.
I think it takes the problems away.
But it's a culture that we got taught, because to release anything, it will be a drinking culture, and they are changing that.
Yeah, it has changed in the military. It's changed.
Massively.
I mean, drinking's frowned upon now, whereas us it was a reward. Well, I remember being in Germany, like late 70s, early 80s. If you did something good, you get a crate of beer. If you did something bad, you drank a crate of beer.
Yeah.
If you just did anything, it was a crate of beer. That was the go-to. And that starts to create I don't want to say it makes you all alcoholics, because it doesn't, because at times we'd just stop drinking when we had to. But what it does, we became binge drinkers, I think. Mm-hmm. It was always our go-to when whatever was going on, it was always our go-to. and we all still like a bevy now, but when we start to know what we're doing, like the bevy becomes something we enjoy as opposed to something we just do to get bluttered.
Yeah.
And I don't think at that time, probably to about 10, 15 years ago, I don't think I ever had a drink without wanting to get drunk.
Yeah. Well, that's what we think it's for.
Aye. So I didn't see the point of having 2 pints.
No.
For me, it was 2 pints was just a chaser, like I suppose. I wanted to get bluttered.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just get out of my face all the time. And then with the work I do now, I can't do that, because I'm working with guys that are vulnerable. But I don't think we should say to people, you can't drink. I think what we need to do is introduce a couple of beers. We all know the 2 beer rule. That's how the British Army works.
It is.
And we understand the 2 beer rule. And I think it's fine. If I take guys away in expedition, look, it depends on the people you take out. If somebody's got drink problems, we aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's healthy to have a meal and a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers.
Definitely.
Because that's when conversations start and you start to relax. But what are you really doing with that is you're saying to guys look, you can have a couple of beers and then go to bed. You don't have to get bluttered.
Yeah.
Look, it took me a long time to realise that. But I do fully believe that now. I don't have to go out and get bluttered now. I can just have a couple of beers and go, right, I've had a good night. Because something else is taking, precedent, so the meal, the company, or whatever.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's where I get confused. Now, what I want to say, right, is the reason you came to me, right? Let's talk about the reason.
Yeah.
How did we first meet?
So I've been going. Oh well, I suppose if we go back, first time we met.
Oh yeah, we did meet briefly at an event one time.
Yeah, you was at an event,
and
I just see your stand at the time. However, moving forward for that, I mean, you did say pop down, but I weren't ready to do that. I suppose physical self was ready, but my head wasn't. And it weren't until, I've gone through therapy now since, let's say 2016, and only now, and different types of therapy, something we can go into at a later time, but I've only just been discharged now from Op Courage, which is the NHS for veterans with mental health service. And but just before that, I suppose I was introduced from them to you.
Yeah.
And when the real realisation, I know you said when you was at the event, you're probably down the road. You're literally down the road from me. So it was a lot better than some of the occupational therapy type things that I've been introduced to before, because you got a load of different things that you do, and everyone's very welcoming, and you still got a bit of the military banter, which I love.
But even that was a struggle for you to start with, wasn't it? Cause
it is. And
was
even
it Emily?
still,
Was it Emily that brought you down?
Emily,
from Op Courage brought you down.
Yeah.
Because she knew my background of engineers. She knew you were an engineer. She thought it would be the best suit for you.
Yeah.
And you came down, but you didn't come back right away, did you?
No. So I was putting it off, and I can't remember what pushed me to come back, but I think the thing with myself is, and especially, the PTSD is, you've got to do something, but you'll keep trying to avoid doing that thing. Trouble is, it's there. And eventually that thing that you want to do, to push yourself to do, is more powerful than the avoidance of not doing it, because you feel bad, really. And then, so I pushed myself to come in, and it's got better and better, where I'm starting to know the people in my surroundings a bit better.
That's part of the problem.
And they're starting to understand me, maybe.
Feeling comfortable walking. So that first time, right? So this is true of every single person that comes here. That first time, it's not easy, is it?
It's not easy.
And that's to any organisation, not just us. That's to any organisation.
Right. And it don't matter if you've done it, I've done different things. For example, I went on I think they call it the equine course, and it's working with horses, and it's 2 to 3 days, I think, which I highly recommend, because that opened my eyes up to how horses can actually feel what you're feeling. But what I'm saying about that is, it took me on my 4th booking of getting on there to actually be there. And then you might think, well, okay, you've done it once. This is a different organisation, so why not, do it again?
Yeah.
It don't work like that. So then it all starts from start, as if you'd never done anything before, and then you have to go through the same process within yourself to get comfortable.
So I'm not saying this just to promote Veterans in Action. We can talk about Veterans in Action in another podcast. This is all about what it's like for somebody to go to an organisation. Luckily, you had somebody bring me. I think that's the best way. Somebody brought you to the organisation, which makes that first visit much easier because you're coming with somebody.
It does.
Somebody's making that introduction for you.
Yeah.
Rather than coming in cold, sitting in your car.
Yeah.
Waiting to come into your
and I've
place
been
where
there.
you don't expect
I've been there.
We see it all the time.
A different type of a charity, and introduced the first time, and then the second time I've sat in the car, watched people go in, and decided I'm not going in, and then I'm off.
And that's something that we hopefully anybody watching will see that if they feel like that going to an organisation, it's perfectly normal to feel that way.
It is perfectly normal.
But taking that step forward into it,
yeah,
change your life.
Yeah,
and
it's all a process.
Yeah,
it's a big process. My very first time of being introduced to anyone in the therapy world is, pretty much, if I remember rightly, the police turning up at a flat because I'd left the family home with, they call it, I can't remember what they call them now, but it was a mental health worker within the NHS.
Community mental health team, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Crisis team.
Crisis team. And it was, I weren't letting them in, I ended up staggered on my door. And it probably was about 3 days where they're near enough forced their way in. That was my start of the journey of the help. Mm-hmm. So, it's a difficult process to get on that start. So I totally understand when people can't even start, and it's about, if you're not feeling 100% right, but you're still in the mindset that you need to reach out to someone, do it while you can.
Yeah.
And not while you can't.
Do you think, Lee, that getting better is not a given? So you have to work hard at it. You sometimes need somebody to push you.
Yes,
and
definitely.
You've got that.
I've got that. I've got my wife. Yeah, she pushed me.
So do you think you'd be where you are now without her pushing you to do the things that you felt uncomfortable with doing?
No, because I wouldn't be doing the things. Mm-hmm. I would probably be the grey man in the world and just,
hide yourself away.
Hide myself away. And I would probably, I don't know. If I'm honest, it's such a hard question that.
It really is, isn't it? And it's different for every one of us.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, because the scary thing is I wouldn't want to be where I was at one point, mm-hmm. because that was a very dark place, a place where I thought there was no way out. But would I still be in that place now if my wife weren't there? Maybe. So
you mentioned briefly the first time you met me was at a show. Now, we were at a show, it was called the Adventure Overland Show. And we were showing our vehicles, and it's a show we go to every year. We feel very comfortable there. And the reason you were there was because the way you found a way to get better, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I suppose my big thing is I really was hiding away from any sort of crowds. The build-up of doing something, and I felt so bad if I couldn't, because my wife she's an outgoing person, loves to be social and do everything that I was trying to do the opposite to. So I've always been a lover of the outside. I've always been a lover of camping. I always wanted a motorhome. So the first thing was we got a motorhome. It was a bit of persuading, but now she absolutely loves it. But what I now needed to do was try and build a community, something that, you know, my wife will enjoy. There'll be people we can chat to us, we help out, we try and give back in some way of knowledge within that motorhome community, and then, you know, building a community in a world we didn't know about at the time. So Jodie, her suggestion for that was actually picking up the camera and let's record what we do.
I bet that was the worst thing for you at the start, wasn't it?
It was. It took a while until we'd done it, and then I may have been a little bit hungover, I don't know, on the first vlog, but it was a kind of let's do it then. And we just filmed everything. Again, after filming everything of that weekend away, what Jodie's idea was to start a channel. So I thought, okay, so we put the name out there, done the channel.
What's the name of the channel?
Life's for Touring.
So we're going to put that link to that in the kind of profile at the bottom there, like so you can click onto that and see what Lee does.
Thank you very much.
But you crack on with that, mate.
Yeah, so we put out our first video, and I learned that actually in some way with post-traumatic stress is you still want to be out there and communicate with the world, but you want to hide away as well. So it was a bit of pushing myself to do something out of the ordinary, but at the same time, I was only talking to a camera. I didn't have crowds in front of me. I weren't doing a big presentation to the world. So I learned to be comfortable with the camera. And we were nervous when the first one went out because we was like, who's watching us?
Yeah, exactly.
You can see basically on the analytics of the views coming in, and we're like, what's going on? Who's that? It could be anyone. However, and I grew to get used to the camera, which helps now when I'm at a festival or anything like that, because I can guarantee if I get the camera out, 90% of the people will turn the other way, or they're just trying to ignore it, and you can create a path.
Yeah.
So you can create your space. But at the same time, being ex-service, as a service personnel, you've always wanted to, you're there to do good, right? That's half of it. Yeah, you're there to do good. So it was a way of doing good. So people come up to you and they say, hi, we watch your channel, etc. They're asked questions like, where did you get that battery, or what did you do there? And you give back in a way of a community.
So
and
you think a common interest is something really, really big.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't have to be with military people.
Yeah.
It's just having a focus on this is what I like to do. Other people like to do it as well. And
Yeah.
they talk about the things they like to do. Does that mean you would be friends with all these people out of that interest? Maybe not. Maybe we'd never get to meet them. Like, you know,
no, and I could say a lot of them we probably will never meet. Yeah. However, you know, the ones that do comment and communicate via email, by other socials or YouTube, and it's nice to reply, and it's nice to get feedback that people enjoy what they're watching. So it makes you feel good. So once you get used to the camera, but one thing I would say with that is the biggest skill I learned from post-traumatic stress is basically not necessarily avoidance, but I can basically block off, myself. So I've learned how to put, let's say, masks or whatever. So when I watch myself, I don't see myself. I'm very good at that. Where others can criticize their self all day long, I don't even look at that because I'm so used to doing that anyway. Looking in the mirror before even doing that is shutting myself off from anything. That was a good little, I suppose, trait to have. So some of my skills or some of the things I picked up that were bad, I put into a good way, because then we can push out the videos. We can share our travels so others can do the same.
So it's not just about video though, is it? Like the video is the actual thing you do, but then there's all the stuff you do in the background as well. So
yeah.
it's bigger than just making a video, isn't it? Like,
well, of course it is. Yes,
it's about the whole kind of the editing of the video, the analytics to do behind it and all that.
Yeah.
Like so that gives you a purpose at home as well. It's not just about what you do in the motorhome, is it? It's just it's all the stuff that people don't see in a video.
Exactly.
It's
yes.
the stuff you do at home, isn't it?
Yeah. So one weekend video could take me half a week, and that's with all the different aspects that go with it, from editing, and then obviously maintaining the motorhome. So yeah, the motorhome has basically been able to push me out into the world. I can travel with my safe space, as they say. And with that space, I can pull over if I need to. If I'm starting to have a panic attack in any situation, there'll always be a services somewhere or some lay-by. You can pull over and I can get my head down for an hour and then I'm back on the road. And that's all the things that people don't see. But it's learning how to cope with yourself. And that's why I found traveling in the way we travel, it gives Jodie everything she needs. It gives me everything I need. And the filming is what gets me out there. It's what I can go to different locations and never get out the motorhome, and that's no good. But it shows like we need to film this, and then we go and look for the historic buildings, the cathedrals, the whatever the beauty is of that area, and start seeing life again. And we do it via the camera.
Something we miss in the military is when we go to places, and we've travelled quite a few places in our military careers, and you don't tend to see them that much.
You don't.
You tend to see what you want to see, and we miss everything. I mean, we did a lot of walking when I first started the charity up, and I wanted people to say, right, when you walk up the top of a hill, stop and have a look around and see where you are. Because the chances of doing that in the military is we see the guy's boots in front of us, don't we? We don't really see anything
pretty
else.
Much.
And I think that travel kind of aspect of what you do and what we do here at Veterans in Action is a huge way to just kind of be in the moment and take in and absorb everything that's around about you. All the kind of the sensory elements that's going about you that we don't really pay a lot of notice to most of the time. Certainly through our military careers we don't. But when you start to do that, you start to kind of relax inside, I think. And without going all airy-fairy, it's like it's just a good place to be. And sometimes we need help to get in that direction, I think. And luckily you've got a supportive partner who might have been a reluctant partner to do the motorhome thing to start with.
Yeah.
But now it's become her focus as well. It's something that you both look forward to. And that's huge, isn't it?
It is. It is massive. And I suppose if you look at all the different ways that we're shown or you're taught into how to manage things, be it from flicking a band on your wrist, be it for certain mindfulness stuff. If you think about what the motorhome, the natural, is finding stuff, let's just say it's finding something that you're going to enjoy, that you can put a lot of these techniques in place without too much, I suppose, trying to put them in place. I mean, you think of picking up the camera, knowing you'll be in an area that you're going to film. You're going to spend that little bit more time doing that because obviously filming will take that time, which means you spend time actually looking at something, understanding something. Well, that's mindfulness straight away.
Yep.
You're doing it without saying, I've got to do some mindfulness. You just do it.
The thing is about mindfulness, you shouldn't have to think about mindfulness.
Exactly. So if you
the
can
fact
find
you're
that
doing
way,
it and it becomes natural is the mindfulness, isn't it?
yes, exactly.
You're in that moment right at that time and taking everything in.
Yeah.
And actually enjoying doing what you do.
Yeah.
Because I always say, if you don't enjoy doing something, just don't do it.
Exactly.
Just find the things. So, where do you think, or how do you think that's helped with your PTSD?
It's basically took me out of the closed four walls, took me out of doing the normal, fighting to survive a day job, going home, being in the four walls, and not breaking out, I suppose, of what you've put yourself in. And that's that, I suppose you're in a steel box, really. Mm-hmm. You don't want hassle. You don't want any trouble. And your head obviously catastrophizes everything. You can get paranoid. There's all these little things that you try and keep yourself as safe as possible, should we say. But I suppose what this has done for me, it's made me break out of that box. It's made me, just break out of the box.
So it's taken you out that safe place, innit, and made you kind of start to open up to the world again.
Yeah.
Because what's the alternative to that?
Exactly.
The alternative is the four walls, isn't it?
It is. And it's creating, I didn't know I was doing it, but obviously I was doing it naturally. For all these years of different therapy and learning all this stuff we're pretty much talking about now, is my natural path. I ended up creating that safe space, but I could create that anywhere, because once them blinds are up in the motorhome, I've made it safe for myself. I've got certain alarms. So if people touch the side of the van, the alarms will go off. I can have them set while sleeping. It reassures me more, but I can put them blinds up and be anywhere. But when I look around the motorhome, it's familiar. It's got everything I need in it. It's my safe space. So it don't matter what I'm doing. If I'm starting to feel the anxiety, if I'm starting to feel a panic attack or anything coming on, I could just go to the safe space. If it's a festival and Jodie wants to carry on walking around, we know each other well enough now. I'll just say, I'm going to have an hour. I can go off and do what I need to do, and she can carry on. It's not disturbing her life.
So obviously what you do wouldn't work for everybody, yeah?
No, and that's the thing.
But it's
you
about
need
finding
to
what works for you, isn't it?
Exactly.
And that, I think some of the work we do here, we have several projects going on. I know people that know us will see we build Land Rovers and all that, but that's just one project we do here.
Yeah.
This is another project we've just started, but we started to use, on a very early expedition, we started to use cameras in a way. I looked at a thing called therapeutical photography, and it was, again, like you were describing, it's been in that moment, taking a picture, be aware of your environment, see it, take a picture of it, and what we were trying to do with that is create new positive memories of, whether it be video or whether it be in a picture, so that when somebody was having a bad moment later on, we could always reflect back to that, remember the time we were there and how good we had. And there's no doubt about it, but the work I've done over the last 17 odd years, is that when we look back at the videos that we've created, you get a touch of that feeling with them. So you remember where you were, what you were doing, the mood you were in, and all of that. And if we can recapture that, there's many times when I talk to veterans that are suffering, and you say to them, when was the last time you were happy? It would usually, the answer would be before their trauma.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do, we're creating these memories, and similar to what you're doing with the motorhome, is you're creating these new positive memories, so you don't have to travel back.
Yes.
When you look back at your life, you don't have to travel back to the last time you were happy, because it might have been a day ago, a week ago, a month ago.
Yeah.
You don't have to travel back to before your trauma.
Yeah.
And I think these new kind of memories we create for ourselves is the healing process. Therapy's got its place, medication's got its place, but creating memories and doing something you enjoy doing is the way forward.
It is, yeah. I mean, you got a massive understanding of PTSD. If you think of post-traumatic stress anyway, it is a trauma or multiple trauma, let's say memories in the wrong place. So it's about, it is having these extra ones that you are now focusing on and being able to, obviously therapy's got its place to try and help with putting them as they should be within the mind. But if
we can combine the therapy and activity.
Yeah.
That has to be the way forward. I believe if we do therapy in isolation and go back home and do the same things we were doing before, we'll just end up in the same place.
Of course you do.
But if we can find something we enjoy doing with either on your own or with others, like if you can go fishing, if that's your thing, I don't care what the subject matter is. It doesn't really bother me. I think find the thing that's right for you as an individual.
That's right.
And do that thing.
It could be absolutely anything out there. And there's a whole handful of stuff, and like you say, you've got all different stuff here, it's finding that thing. And I suppose if someone comes in with an idea,
that's really important that and that's something we try to do here. We try to say, if somebody comes with an idea, let's work on the idea.
Yeah.
Let's make it work. And how does it fit in with the rest of the stuff we do?
Yeah.
Because I think it all, for instance, we do flying drones and filming and stuff like that, for our expeditions. But if we had two different projects, let's say building Land Rovers, and they were over there, and the photography's over there, or the filming's over there, they don't meet each other. So these two groups of people doing these two things don't really communicate.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's right. So what you do is you combine them.
Yeah.
You get the guys that's doing the filming to film the guys doing the building of the vehicles,
Yeah.
and then they communicate with each other. So it becomes a bigger project.
Yeah.
So it's not just building vehicles, it's building vehicles and filming the process for your
Yeah.
YouTube channel, whatever that may be. And then the clothing they wear. We've got another workshop where people make clothing, so they make the clothing they wear. So that's combined. So all, again, 3 projects are talking to each other now.
Yeah.
And all of these things combined bring different subject matters in that
Yeah.
make a complete thing.
Yes.
And then, I think the work I've done is it's taken a long time to get to that point of understanding that point that
Yeah.
what we don't want to do is separate people.
Yeah. And like you say, it's easily done. It's very easily, someone coming in with an idea of what they want to do or something,
Mhm.
and then it could be an isolation role.
Yeah.
It's how do you, as this organisation, put that into something that can be then.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we did with that is a guy came to us last year, a veteran, ex-Army guy, who through COVID started getting into Lego.
Mm.
Now, for me, I'm thinking, Lego, come on, get a grip. But I have to say it was a powerful tool to use. And why it was a powerful tool to use is you can get people sitting around a table talking bollocks, around a table, just having a bit of a laugh and making a Lego model. I got that. But how did we get people in to do the bigger projects?
Yeah.
So what that became is an introductory project.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff we built, when I put it out, I was going to do Lego. I was a bit embarrassed to do it because I didn't know how people would react to it, veterans.
Yeah.
Then I find out it's a guilty secret that a lot of people have got.
Yeah, of course
All these
it is.
guys
We've
sitting
all
at
done
home
it as
building
kids.
Lego, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Like, and I found it really enlightening in a way that people were doing that. So people started to donate some models to us, mainly Land Rovers that people had been doing through COVID. So rather than just build a Land Rover that Lego had produced, we wanted to reflect what we did.
Yeah.
So we made using 2.5 models, we created a Land Rover 110 with a canopy and a roof tent. Well, that's not something Lego make.
Yeah.
We found plans for it. So it became a bigger project. There was logistics involved in it. You
Yeah.
had to find the bits, you had to buy the bits, you had to kind of work in the plans and build this bigger model. And so what it did is it brought people with different skill sets in that had something to offer who may not have thought that was a case.
Yeah.
And then what we did is where we built the models, we've got a room that's called a project room. It's got a window into the workshop. So when people come in to do that, they weren't maybe coming to build Land Rovers as such. They were coming
Yeah.
to do Lego. It would be that stepping stone into the workshop. So let's show you our vehicles we really build.
Yeah.
Because these models nowadays, like Lego for me was a rectangle with, you built a house with 4 windows and a door. That's what Lego
all
meant
changed.
to me. Well, that's not Lego nowadays, is it? So the models that we're making, the engines kind of moved, the pistons went up and down and all that. So we said, well, come see what it's like in real life. And it introduced them to in a soft approach into doing something bigger that they never thought they would do.
Yeah.
So it is about whatever works for the individual. It doesn't matter what I think about the project.
No.
It's what they want to do with the project. And that's a really powerful tool.
Definitely.
That they can get something they're interested in that's a stepping stone into something else that's they would probably never have got involved in.
And I think, you're right, because the hard or the, realistic truths about this is a lot of us probably had hobbies, but whatever trauma, whatever, diagnosis you have in, the hobbies stopped and then you don't do nothing. It's finding that little thing. I mean, my hobbies have changed massively, well, the only hobby I really have now is the motorhome, but it's finding that one thing to break that ice again, to build upon, because, you can shut yourself off from doing anything or trying anything. But if there's that little spark of one little thing, no matter what it is, be it Lego, that's what you build upon.
Yeah. Look, and it's building that, and anybody coming in with an idea, like you said, well, let's act on the idea.
Yeah.
Let's see how it fits into the bigger picture. So Lego seems so far removed from the other stuff we do.
Yeah.
But when you start to look at it as a way of getting people involved in other things, it's a great start point for some people because it's non-threatening. They don't feel they have to have any particular skills.
Yeah.
You know, like they can come in and they can do it. And it's the same with the photography and the filming. They don't come in. I mean, you've come in here. In fact, the fact that you're going to be co-hosting this whole podcast idea with me is that because you're interested in filming already, the motorhome gave you that avenue into that interest, and this is just taking another approach at it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And don't get me wrong, it's different. This is pushing my comfort zone.
Yeah, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
It is a good thing, and it's something you have to do. You know, we had a little play around with it, but now, you know, we're talking away, and you've got to forget what's there, you know, with cameras and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's doing that little thing different. You know, it's if you go to the gym and you want to build, you know, a good physique, you want to build muscle. If you're stuck with the same exercises time and time again, you're never going to shock the nervous system and shock the body into growing as it should. So you'll mix up your exercises, right? Same thing with this. It's just another way of mixing it up, which pushes me that little bit more into something that's uncomfortable, which is a good thing. And it's getting used to being uncomfortable.
I was always taught when I was training to do the stuff I do now is if we don't keep our mind at stretch, we just stay as we are.
Exactly.
We have to kind of expand all the time and go out of our comfort zone. The worst thing about PTSD is we retreat inside our house, then we retreat inside our room inside our house, and then we retreat inside our head, and that's usually a long way back from that point. Yeah. And you're now at the point where you're putting your mind at stretch by trying new things and always kind of moving forward. And the fact this project was not just a case of filming, is it? We built the room.
Yes.
We kind of designed what we had to do. We had to get all the equipment. So it's bigger than just filming in it. It's the whole project. And then probably me and you are going to be the ones that edit video and stuff like that. And that's really important stuff that it's, like as I said to you with your own YouTube channel, that we look at the whole aspect of it. So you come in, some days we're not going to be filming, we're going to be editing. Yeah. And it's putting that piece together that you're comfortable with and all the stuff you do to that. It's not just a quick process. No. And that's the most important thing, I think.
That's right. That's right. And doing this for me, I think it's a great thing because there's going to be other people that are interested in media, and it's not just podcasts. You do vlog, you know, I suppose vlogging of your expeditions and stuff like that. So, and people may be interested in just editing alone. They might not want to get on camera. So there's so much that you can gain from that.
I would say more people don't want to go on camera.
Probably.
Than they actually do, but it doesn't mean they can't be involved.
No, sound,
editing. We've got Billy sitting behind the desk there now. He's doing our audio controls. Yeah. So there's a production side to it as well. Exactly. How did we set the cameras up? Yeah. What angles do we have? Yeah. Now, we may not get it right. We might, this is our first podcast. We may not get a lot of them aspects right. No. But that's the growing process as well. Yes. So how do we improve it? And that's where we go into next. And I think what we're trying to do with this whole podcast thing is the story you tell and how you've come through your PTSD, and it doesn't mean you're not suffering with PTSD now, you've found a way of coping with it, is there might be somebody watching this video that go, I'm interested in that. I could do something like that. I've got a motorhome. I've never seen it that way. Or I'd like to get a motorhome. And I hope that everybody bring on here to talk. Sometimes it's just going to be us talking about whatever rubbish we come up with, you know, but if we bring a guest in, I'm hoping their stories are going to connect with somebody out there. Yeah.
You know, every story told is someone else that'll be reached. Because, you know, my journey is going to relate to some. Not everyone. Someone else's journey is going to do the same. You know, so and that's the good thing with doing these podcasts is because you may sit there one week, it don't quite relate. But if you watch the next one, well, that's when you might actually have that moment of like, well, that's exactly what I want to do. That what they've told is part of my journey already. They're in the light a little bit now. I'm seeing it. So, and that's the interest because, you know, it's a story of someone else that always helps that next person.
I think that the message I'm trying to get across with this, and why I wanted to do this, I think the stories are really, really important, and positive messages are really important. If unfortunately, I think PTSD in a way has been hijacked. Everybody's got PTSD now.
I think so.
But those that suffer with PTSD, they don't see a way out of it.
No.
And they believe they're the only ones going through what they're going through. And the answer is, what we're trying to do is say, like, people have come through PTSD and live a very comfortable life despite having PTSD. We here at Veterans Action call that post-traumatic growth. So it's and it's not. I mean, what is post-traumatic growth? We'll probably cover in another video, like of why we use this methodology. But it's about recognizing that, you know, like there's no big peaks of changes and stuff like this. Changes is gradual, and it's right that it is gradual, because if it's just a sudden change can go the other way too.
Yeah, and even through my experience, you know, when you think you're ready, well, that's a dangerous thought in itself, and that's when you could put yourself back because you're not. And what I mean by that is you don't need therapy, you don't need a community or organisation like this, you don't need anything. If you think you're that ready, well, then you could end up going backwards a bit and having
I've
then
seen
go
that a lot
forward.
of times.
And it's happened to me. It's happened to me a few times. So, you know, I never look at myself, whereas before I always was looking that, well, when is this going to cure? Because if it's an illness or if it's something like, you know, like that, then it must have a cure. But now I look at it as I'm just different.
Well, what's a cure for anything?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, I don't know what a cure is. I mean, I hear about cures for PTSD, but there is no cure for PTSD as far as I'm concerned. What we do is we need to change how we live.
Yeah.
You know, we need to find a way that we live that's different from what it was in the past.
Yeah.
I remember a guy telling me, this is a long time ago, we were in a meeting with a load of veterans, and this guy says, well, I just want to be like I was like in 21. I says, you're never going to be 21 again. You've got to remember you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
You know, and you're never going to get that person back, because that's not who you are now. Because life changes us to that. Like, and although we'd all love to be 21 again. Well, maybe I don't, because I was in that much trouble at that time. Like, but you know, like, I'd love to have the knowledge I've got now at 21.
Yeah,
put it that way.
Yeah,
you know, like, and I think I made a lot of different choices in my life.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do to people is, like, say, like, you can't keep on looking back. We can't do nothing about the past.
No.
What we need to be doing is, and this is the methodology I work with, is we concentrate on today and tomorrow, because we can't change anything that's happened before.
No.
But what we can change is what we do today.
Exactly that. Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that. And I think it's when I started to learn that within myself, is when you find yourself not going down that rabbit hole, because we're all going to have blips. There's going to be a time where you're stronger on that day than another day. There's going to be something that might trigger you, which is a very hard thing, and that's probably a topic in itself. Triggers is to try and understand your own. But you know, it's learning that actually, okay, whatever happened, you have to draw that line, because the next day is the new base point, and then you can move forward.
That could be it. The most important thing is, if you've got a problem, let's talk about it. Like, you know, like, and if you don't talk about it, small problems become big problems. Because the next small problem comes along, then the next small problem, I've not dealt with any of them. Before we know it, it becomes a huge problem. And then that's hard to deal with then for anybody.
Yeah.
Never mind having somebody with PTSD having to deal with it. So we bury our head in the sand, don't we?
We do, yes.
You know, like, and that problem becomes huge.
Yeah, and like you say, burying your head in the sand. But you know what you're saying there is typical of what we need to start doing now, and that's within the British Army or any army really. Is it's the talking that actually, you know, builds, you know, gives you progress, and that's from the start.
Yeah, and you're right with that. You know, like, and I fully agree with that. Look, we're going to finish this podcast now, because we could talk all day, I think. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to continue more of these talks about PTSD. We'll see what reaction we get from this video. Like,
exactly, and if there's anything, I suppose, that people want to understand more out there, you know, you're veterans or if you've done any sort of service or no service at all. It doesn't matter. Anyone can suffer from PTSD. But if there is anything relatable to yourselves that you want to talk about, then that's something we can put down on the agenda.
Yeah, I think for me this is a great first chat, I think, because it's something we both understand. We've both lived it. We both live with it every day. And I think for me, what we want to happen with this podcast, it has to be a two-way thing. We could talk all day, couldn't we?
We could, yeah.
But comments are really, really important, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like we want to hear from those that watch this, or those that take the time to listen to us two waffle on. Because I think somewhere in there's a message, isn't there?
Definitely. Yeah.
And it might not relate to every single person.
Yeah.
But we have to think there's that one person out there, and the comments you make, whether you agree or disagree with what we say, that's the conversation.
It is. And again, because every person is different. So my experiences, your experiences are going to be maybe different from others. So what are your experiences? And it's that helps people.
And look, if this brings somebody out that may be struggling on their own, that find listening to us talk, or those who come in the future and our future talks about, because we're going to do a lot of talking about PTSD, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because this is something that's very close to our hearts, and the methodology we use for it, and how we move people forward. And when we bring guests in, their inspirational stories of how they've come through perhaps trauma, maybe physical or mental, and how they've got through that, and how that'll relate to somebody else that's sat out there. I think that's an important measure.
It's very important.
So we'll finish this first podcast. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us. And all we ask you to do is hit that like button, the old thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and we'd love to hear your comments. Whether we're rubbish at this, whether we're good at it, whether it related to you, I think all comments are good for us, because then we can learn from that and we can make it better as well.
Definitely.
Anyway, thank you for joining us in the first podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you then.